I wish I had a hunk of plastic to capitalize on nostalgia for a time I didn't grow up in. Wow, the Amiga 500 Mini. This is one of those retro microconsoles that was made to capitalize off the success of the other retro microconsoles that were coming out at the time. There were a lot of them, the first being the Nintendo Entertainment System Mini. You could not find one of these when they first came out. I think I have pretty much all of them. I have the NES, I have the SNES, the Sega Genesis. This one was really, really good. The Commodore 64, which was made by the same company as the Amiga one, and the PlayStation one. That one is pretty controversial because it was bad. I also have the Neo Geo Mini, but it's wrapped in bubble wrap because it's extremely susceptible to scratching, and it's also bad. The Turbo Graphics, that's cool. You don't know what that is, and I'm not going to pretend I knew what that was until they released the mini console. These are just a cool way to experience like gaming history, especially if you didn't grow up in the time that these systems released in. In fact, none of these systems are systems from when I was alive. The closest I have is the PS1 Mini, but I was a PS2 kid. All of these consoles really stop. Oh gosh, I think, again, the PS1 Mini is the one that's the latest in the timeline. I remember when these first came out, you could not find them. And it was not just the popularity of it. It was the scalpers. People bought like loads and loads and loads of these so they could resell them on eBay. And it worked. Nintendo actually had to release a statement saying like, hey, don't buy these from scalpers, you're getting ripped off. And as the trend went along, you got more and more obscure as the licenses for these things got, there's only so many consoles out there. And, well, trends don't really last that long. You had the NES, you had the SNES, you had the Sega Genesis, which really, really good. It's a really, really well-made microconsole there. The Turbo Graphics. You had, of course, the Commodore 64. And then you had the PlayStation 1, which also, like I said, wasn't very good. The Nintendo ones had really, really good emulation. And all of these consoles really came with controllers that felt like the original controllers, like down to the switches. Except for the Neo Geo. That one is controversial because of that. But the emulation is so good, it feels like you're playing on the original console. Again, I think the Sega Genesis one is actually the best for that feeling, but no, most of these consoles are really, really well made. So why do I keep ragging on this one? Well, you know how when you think about the PlayStation, you think of the twin analog sticks. When the PlayStation 1 first came out, the controller actually didn't have twin analog sticks. And guess what they did? They put a bunch of games that take advantage of the twin analog sticks on here and made it so the controller that came with it didn't have twin analog sticks. And they never released one that worked with it. The Amiga is really, really cool because it's an emulator of a computer. Like, the Amiga was a computer platform. It wasn't just a game system. It's kind of like if someone released the PC Mini or like the Mac Mini. Wait, that's an actual product. And it was just to emulate games that were popular around the time. I almost want to see something like that for like the 90s with like a PC. Put like Doom or Quake on it or something like that. This one's cool because it comes like with an actual mouse that would have come with the original Amiga, a controller. These are all the games that it comes pre-built with. The cool thing about this and the Commodore 64 is they designed it to be open source, so you can put games on there that did not come with the system. Like, it's completely emulator friendly. California Games, I'm pretty sure that one was infamously bad. There's no way you recognize any of the games on here, and I say that because I don't recognize most of the games on here. If you do, you're cooler than I. I love how this is literally just like a scaled down version of the Amiga that would have been out at the time. Now, these keys don't actually do anything. They're solid. I'm pretty sure the same company released a version of the Commodore 64 Mini. And the keys on it, like, you see how it actually has these keys like printed here. The keys on this revised version, not this one, but like the actual full-size version, work. So you could actually use those keys, to play games or to emulate other Commodore 64 programs. But no, on here it's just a solid mold of the actual, solid plastic mold of the Amiga 500. The mouse here is really cool. It has actual clicky buttons. It's actually really, really nice. It feels really, really cool. Yeah, this is how a mouse used to look when you were using it, on an older computer. Think back to the Apple II, think back to various other, home computers that were around at the time. The cool thing about these microconsoles is they're all plug and play. They all have HDMI output. You just connect them directly to your monitor or your TV, and you can just play the games right then and there. And because they're older games, they don't really require, any processing power to load. You just get right into the game. Now, these are all really, really cool ways to experience, these older games, but these consoles, are they a gimmick? Yes. But if you don't have access to your original consoles, these are good, like, best of compilations for, that generation of consoles. They're just in these little plastic boxes. But overall, if you don't have access to these original systems and you just want to, like, actually, figure out what was that generation about, I think these mini consoles are actually a really, really great way to experience them. Unless we're talking about the PS1.